Have you ever looked at your garden in July and felt a bit disappointed? Everything seems to be blooming and green, but there are few fruits setting, the produce is small, and that promised abundant harvest feels a million miles away. Sound familiar? Today, we're going to break down the 7 main mistakes gardeners make in July. These are the things that most often steal our expected zucchinis, tomatoes, and cucumbers. I promise, after this video, you'll look at your plant care in a whole new light, and at least one mistake on this list is definitely going to surprise you. July is the peak of summer. For our plants, this isn't the time to focus on growing more leaves and stems. It's time to work towards results, meaning the fruits and vegetables themselves. Plant needs change dramatically now. Ignoring this means you're basically settling for a disappointing harvest. Okay, mistake number 1, the one almost everyone trips over. It's watering incorrectly during the hottest part of the day. It seems logical enough, right? The sun is scorching, the ground is dry, gotta water right away. So we grab the watering can or hose right in the middle of the day. But by doing this, we're actually doing our plants a disservice. Why? First, water droplets on leaves in direct sun act like tiny lenses. They focus the sun's rays, causing leaf burn. The plant gets severely stressed instead of the moisture it desperately needs. Second, most of the water you pour onto hot ground will simply evaporate before it ever reaches the roots. It's a complete waste of water and effort. And the most dangerous part? Watering the leaves in warm weather creates perfect conditions for fungal diseases to thrive. Heat plus humidity is a breeding ground for things like blight and powdery mildew. So, what's the right way? Remember this simple rule. Water either early in the morning, before the sun gets intense, or in the evening, after the heat has dropped. Pour the water slowly and directly at the base of the plant, trying your best not to wet the leaves. You need to water deeply, but not necessarily every day. It's much better to give the soil a thorough soaking every few days than to just lightly sprinkle a little bit daily. Shallow watering encourages roots to stay near the surface, making the plant even more vulnerable to dry spells. Moving on to the second, very common mistake. This is improper feeding, or, as I like to call it, feeding them, but with the wrong stuff. Many gardeners, out of habit, continue using the same fertilizers they applied in May or June. Most often, these are infusions of cow manure, poultry droppings, or green manures. While all of these are excellent, their time has passed. So what's the issue? The thing is, all these organic feeds are rich in nitrogen. Nitrogen is the nutrient responsible for growth. It's what builds up green mass, the stems and leaves. At the beginning of the season, that's exactly what you needed. The plant had to grow big and strong, but by July, the plant's goal changes. It's already grown. Now its main purpose is reproduction, which means forming and developing fruit. By continuing to give it lots of nitrogen, you're essentially sending it the wrong signal. Instead of flowering and setting fruit, it keeps putting all its energy into growing more foliage. Gardeners sometimes call this going vegetative or fattening up. You've probably seen tomato plants like this. Stems as thick as your arm, huge leaves, but hardly any flowers or fruit set. That's a classic result of nitrogen overfeeding. Now the main players for our garden beds are phosphorus and potassium. These are the nutrients responsible for flowering, setting fruit, filling them out, and just as importantly, for the taste of the future harvest. Moving on, the third mistake that can really cost you your harvest is just plain carelessness. July heat and the humidity after watering create perfect conditions not only for your crops to grow, but also for pests and diseases to multiply rapidly. If you miss the start of an infestation or illness outbreak in July, you're almost guaranteed to lose a big chunk of your yield. What do I mean by that? It's during this time that the most damaging garden enemies become active. Make it a habit to thoroughly inspect your plants at least every 2 or 3 days. And don't just give them a quick look. Be really attentive. Always check under the leaves. That's usually where aphids hide, on the underside. See a superfine, barely noticeable web on your cucumbers? That's a red flag. It's spider mites. and they can suck the life out of a plant in just a few days. The same applies to diseases. Those first dark spots of late, blight on your tomato leaves and stems, or that white, powdery coating of mildew on your zucchini. They aren't just minor flaws. They're a sign that you need to act immediately. In July, these problems spread incredibly fast, not by the day, but by the hour. Don't wait for the disease to take over the entire plant or the whole garden bed. Use preventative treatments with biological products. Remember, by midsummer, it's much harder to cure a problem than to prevent it in the first place. Let's move on to mistake number 4. I like to call this false pity. It directly relates to training and shaping plants, especially tomatoes, cucumbers and peppers. What does this mean? It's when we look at a lush, green plant and just can't bring ourselves to cut anything off. We hesitate to remove a shoot that looks perfectly beautiful and healthy. A classic example is suckering tomatoes. You see a strong sucker growing from the leaf axil. It might even have flower buds on it already, and we think, how can I possibly remove it? Those are future fruits. But this is a mistake. A plant has finite energy and resources, and it will try to support absolutely everything. The main stem, all the suckers. The result, instead of a dozen large, juicy fruits, you'll get 30 small, green peas that simply won't have enough energy or resources to grow and ripen. The same goes for lower leaves, especially on cucumbers. If a leaf has yellowed, it's no longer participating in photosynthesis. It's no longer contributing to the plant, but it continues to consume water and nutrients. Furthermore, crowded lower foliage doesn't get good air circulation, which promotes the development of root rot. Don't hesitate to remove anything unnecessary. Training and shaping the plant isn't cruelty. It's smart resource allocation. You, like a wise manager, are directing the plant's energy, not into excessive foliage but into producing fruit. All right, let's break down the 5th mistake. At first glance, it might seem ridiculously obvious, but its consequences are incredibly insidious. It's the lost battle against weeds. In July, they grow at an insane, unbelievable rate. You might think, what's the harm? It's just some lamb's quarters or couch grass growing near my tomato. But in July, every single weed isn't just a bit of grass. It's an aggressive, incredibly greedy competitor. They steal the most precious resources from your cultivated plants right when they need them most: water and nutrients. Think about it. You carefully applied that potassium phosphorus fertilizer to help your fruits develop, but a huge portion of it isn't being eagerly consumed by your tomato. It's being scarfed down by a greedy weed. Every single sip of water your cucumber desperately needs in the heat is being snatched up by the powerful root systems of weeds. But there's more. Those dense thickets of weeds right at the base of your plants create another huge problem. They block air circulation. It stays constantly damp and muggy down there. This is basically a 5-star hotel for slugs, and the perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases like late blight. You can spray and treat the leaves all you want, but if the base of the plant is a breeding ground for disease, all your efforts will be wasted. That's why weeding in July isn't just about making things look nice. It's a matter of survival and the health of your harvest. All right, moving on to the 6th common mistake, one that many gardeners overlook, thinking it's just for pros. But guess what? It's actually one of the most powerful tools you can use for an abundant harvest. I'm talking about ignoring the practice of mulching. So what exactly is mulch? It's quite simple. Essentially, it's any organic material you use to cover the soil around your plants. This could be grass clippings that have dried slightly, straw, hay, well-rotted sawdust, or compost. So, where does the magic come in? Remember that battle with weeds we just mentioned? Well, a layer of mulch about 5 to 7 centimetres thick is your best defence against them. It simply blocks sunlight from reaching the soil surface, preventing weed seeds from germinating and new weeds from growing. Suddenly, your weeding problem is practically solved. But that's only the first benefit. Remember the first mistake we discussed: moisture evaporation? Mulch works like a protective blanket. It shields the soil from the hot sun. Moisture from watering doesn't evaporate into the air. Instead, it stays in the soil where your plant roots can access it. This means you can water less frequently. but each watering will be far more effective. The soil under the mulch stays consistently loose and moist. It won't develop a hard crust or crack from the heat. And here's another huge plus. Organic mulches slowly break down over time. Earthworms and beneficial soil microbes happily work away at it, transforming it into valuable nutrients and improving your soil structure right at the plant roots. Essentially, by mulching, you're simultaneously protecting, watering, and feeding your plants. Ignoring such a simple yet incredibly effective technique, especially during the heat of summer, is like voluntarily throwing away part of your potential harvest. And finally, the seventh mistake. This one is perhaps the most insidious, often made with the best intentions, without people realizing they are actually stopping their harvest. It's untimely harvesting, or more accurately, harvesting your fruits too late. Imagine a cucumber or zucchini plant. For any plant, the main goal in life isn't to feed us, but to reproduce, to produce mature seeds. When an enormous, yellowing, overgrown cucumber or a blimp-sized zucchini is hanging on the vine, that's a loud and clear signal to the plant. Mission accomplished. The seeds inside are mature, time to rest. And it drastically slows down, or even stops producing new female flowers and fruit sets. Why waste energy if the main mission is already complete? Now consider a different situation. You come along and regularly, every couple of days, pick young, crisp cucumbers or tender zucchinis. For the plant, this is a constant alarm signal. Something's wrong. My offspring are disappearing. Need to quickly make new flowers and new fruits. By doing this, you don't let the plant relax and complete its life cycle. You are essentially tricking it, forcing it to work non-stop. This simple technique kicks off a real harvesting conveyor belt. The more frequently you harvest, the more abundant your yield will be. However, among all these points, two deserve special attention because they act subtly and cause the most damage. These are incorrect feeding and untimely harvesting. Let's talk about feeding. In July, tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers no longer need large amounts of nitrogen. Nitrogen is responsible for leaf and stem growth. By continuing to feed them nitrogen fertilizers, you encourage the plant to focus on vegetative growth. It will produce huge leaves, but won't have the energy left for fruit. In July, potassium and phosphorus should be the heroes. They are the ones responsible for fruit formation, development, and taste. Remember, in July, we're feeding the future harvest, not just the foliage. Now for that crucial point. A mistake that seems absurd is not harvesting on time. Take zucchini or cucumbers. As long as a large, overripe fruit hangs on the plant, this signals to the plant, my job is done. The seeds are mature, it's time to slow down, and it sharply reduces or completely stops forming new fruits. But if you regularly, every couple of days, pick the young cucumbers and zucchini, this sends an alarm signal to the plant. Something's wrong, I need to keep producing fruit immediately. Thus, the more often you harvest, the more abundant your yield will be. As you can see, in July, the devil is truly in the details. Proper watering, correct feeding, and timely harvesting. These are the three pillars your summer abundance depends on. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If it was helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new garden care tips. What mistakes have you encountered in July? Or perhaps you have a secret tip for a bountiful harvest. Share your experience in the comments below.